So this is the last lesson of this course, and in this lesson we are going to try to get a glimpse of something that is as important as to be a professional programmer, that is to be a part of a team. I cannot stress enough that it's as much important to be a professional programmer as a good team player. At the end of the day, you are a part of a team, and you have to be humble enough to know that you don't have all the responses, and you should not enforce your personal preference over the others. This presentation is based on my 18 years of experience working in different teams of different sizes. We will be focusing in a small teams methodology from 3 to 12 people. We will describe mostly positive experience where the team worked as a professional team of developers, but we will also mention some mistakes that can happen in mostly young teams without experience. Today's lesson is going to have two parts. The first one would be to identify the profiles and the responsibilities of each profile for each of the members of a professional team of developers. We will see the profile of the producer, the designer, the programmer, the artist, and the tester. And the second part of this lesson, we are going to do all the steps to create a sprint. The first profile that we are going to see is the profile of the producer. This is by far the most important position on the team. As a simple analogy, you can consider him as the director of an orchestra. He is responsible that the project meets the desired requirements. He is the one to assign tasks to all the team members. It's his duty to ensure that all the team members have all the resources and all the necessary information properly documented in order for the team to perform the task efficiently. He should be calm, open to dialogue, trustworthy, and respectful. The next profile that we are going to see is the profile of the game designer. Keeping with the orchestra analogy, she is the compositor. She is responsible that the design meets the project's requirements. She is usually the first to work in the requirements alongside the producer, before anyone else. She is also asked to provide estimations about the cost of the design features that will be provided to the producer. She should define the design in order for the other team members to understand it and work efficiently. She should be able to adapt to the restrictions coming either from the client side or from the team side. She should be humble, descriptive, concise, and with the feet on the ground. The next profile is going to be the programmer. Still with the orchestra analogy, he plays less visible but critical instruments. He is responsible to estimate in an accurate form the programming tasks that compose a project and work on that task trying to meet his initial estimations. He usually receives a design and then he proceeds to identify what tasks need to be done to fully implement that design. He provides the estimations to the producer, then the producer will work on that estimations to create the sprints. Next, the producer will assign the task to the programmer. In that moment, the programmer's responsibility is to deliver the assigned task in the estimated time he previously provided. The programmer needs to be humble, communicative, concise, and respectful with the other team members. So now we are going with the artist profile, and in our orchestra they will play the most visible instruments. She is responsible to meet the art style required by the project. On one side, she will work alongside the designer to create the desired art style with the project requirements. On the other side, she will work with the programmer to adapt the art to the technical restrictions and provide the art in a format that the programmers can use it. She will also provide estimations to the producer about the time and resources is going to cost each task. Then the producer will assign her the tasks to do. Then she will be responsible of delivering in the estimated time. The artist needs to be communicative, humble, a team player, and with the feet on the ground. The last profile we're going to see is going to be the profile of the tester. In our orchestra, they would be the expert people that provide unbiased feedback about the result of the orchestra's performance. They are responsible to ensure the software looks and behaves like defined in the project's requirements. They also have to report time estimations about how much time is going to take the testing process to the producer. Then the producer will assign them the tasks. They will have to work with the programmers and reporting the bugs in a professional format, so the programmer can fix the problems in the most efficient way. They need to be professional, communicative, precise, concise, and team players that provide reports to team members in a professional manner. So what we have here is a team with well-defined responsibilities. The producer should help the team to meet their time estimations. The designer should estimate and work in the design tasks. The programmer should estimate and work in the programming task. The artist estimate and work in the art task. And the tester, more of the same, estimate and work in the testing task. All team members have well-defined responsibilities and work alongside the producer to deliver their work. So now we are going to see some of the mistakes for each profile in somehow an over-the-top way. For example, for the producer, a capital sin would be that himself is estimating the cost of the task. He has trust issues. The producer is not the expert in the programming area. He's not the expert in the game design area. He is not the expert in the art area. He should trust the experts and their estimations. Another sin, overloading the team with unnecessary meetings. That happens when there is no effort in pre-production. If a producer comes into a meeting without having prepared anything and forcing the team to wait until he makes his mind up about what he wants to do, the meetings are going to be eternal. Another type of problem the producer should try to avoid is the WhatsApp type of communication. What's the WhatsApp type of communication? The WhatsApp type communication is to use the instant messaging applications with extremely short messages, making the conversation extremely long, extremely hard to follow. That is really easy to get lost. The messages used in instant messaging should contain the necessary information to solve a problem, not to talk like you were socially talking. Another problem that you may face, especially working as a freelancer, is working with a producer that is not usually there. Doesn't really help the team to reach the goal. He appears maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month. He provides some feedback and he leaves until next month. This is not what a producer should do, because each time that this type of person provides feedback, maybe the development has deviated from the original vision. But since this person is not there to help the team to correct the path to the target, to the goal, then there is a problem. Another pretty common misconception is to confuse the position of the producer with the position of the project manager. The project manager is only there to register what is going on. He doesn't take any active role. He doesn't help the team to get the information they need to complete their task. He doesn't take any kind of responsibility about the tasks. A position of a pure project manager doesn't make any kind of sense in small teams, because a pure project manager doesn't care if the tasks are completed or not. He only cares about recording and reporting. So anyone out there that wants to be a producer and comes from the project management, please consider to learn about the duties of a producer. Some of the mistakes that I have seen the designers to do have been unidirectional communication with the team. It happens that sometimes you are going to work with designers that are going to provide some documentation about the design that needs to be done, but they are not going to be there during the progress, during the development. They are going to come back maybe in 2-3 weeks, a month, and any of the reports that you are going to do in order to help the team to be synchronized in order to meet the desired goal, he's not going to read any of that. When he comes back after a period of time, he will check that most probable thing is that the development team has deviated from the goal, and that is quite problematic. The next two usual mistakes that a game designer can commit are related to the documentation. First of all, it's possible that the game designer doesn't know how to properly document a game design in a way that other team members can understand. Maybe he starts to writing down information that is not strictly necessary in order to the other team members to be able to work on that feature. He provides maybe information not connected with the task, and this can be confusing. Another mistake that I have seen is that sometimes the game designer doesn't provide the necessary information to be able to develop the desired design. Another issue that has happened to me is that when the game designers are disconnected from reality, the thing is that sometimes you may face people that they don't are aware of the platform they are developing for, or they are not following the customer instructions. Either way, they are going to provide a design that is not going to meet or the technical requirements or the customer requirements. It's going to be some kind of design that is not desired by any of the parts, and eventually this could cause big problems. Some of the mistakes programmers could do are these ones. Sometimes you may face programmers that just ignore the assigned task. Okay, they believe they know better, and they proceed to work in whatever they like. That's not how a team works. A team works if everyone is working in a synchronized way in the task they have been assigned. Another mistake that I have seen is when a programmer keeps wasting the time with multiple code techniques. He is not satisfied with just one solution, but he keeps looking for more solutions without any kind of deadline in mind. That makes that the estimation of the task blows up, and this has an impact important in the performance of the team. Another mistake that I have seen programmers to do is when they are not communicating at all. There are some programmers that who like to be in what they call the zone, and they don't want any kind of communication. these programmers maybe are several days without reporting any progress, and this is a problem because the most probable thing is that they are going to deviate from the target. So it's important that the programmers can properly communicate. Another thing that I have experienced myself is when you work with people who come from academia. People who come from the academia, they are not really used to prioritize the production. They are more used to be able to freely explore possibilities. So in that sense, working with this type of people can be, in terms of productivity, can be a problem because they don't really prioritize the productivity, but the way to explore new things. And also in the most extreme cases, when you are dealing with someone as a doctor, to work with a doctor in an environment that it's meant to be productive, it's especially hard because a doctor is really used to set his own rules. He's used to check the work of the others and take it apart and ask the people to redo again the progress done. That obviously blows up any kind of time estimation that the team could do. And in the worst case scenarios, when you are dealing with a real deadline, the doctor is not aware that this is putting a lot of stress into the team, and just by taking apart the progress and forcing the team to redo it again when the deadline is so close can put a lot of stress into the team. Another thing that I have seen in several places are programmers who are burnout, meaning that they have been experiencing traumatic experiences in the development of the company, and they reach into a point that they are just there to do the bare minimum. So they are no longer team players because they are just exhausted of their situation. Some of the mistakes the artist can do is, for example, just not following the technical restrictions. Sometimes you may find people that you ask them to provide you the art in a specific format or with some restrictions due to the target platform. For example, for a mobile game, you need usually low poly models, and you may find artists that are not going to provide this kind of models, and that is a problem. Another issue that is possible to find is artists that are not following the style conventions defined by the designer or the customer. They believe to know better and they take a different direction without telling the rest. Another issue that I have found is that sometimes they are also people that who likes to be in that zone, in that creative zone where nobody else can interact with them. And as the same as with the programmers, they can be several days without communicating and without telling the progress to anyone else, and as a consequence they can deviate from the goal. Related to the testers, they can make some mistakes, but usually it's not their fault. It's because the producer hasn't told them what is their duty. So some issues that you may find when the producer is not aware what a tester should do is that the tester is not documenting properly the bugs, the problems. in order for other team members, the player, the artist, the designer to fix the issues, we need to be able to properly reproduce them or properly understand what is the issue. So it's essential that the report of the bug, the issue, the problem is properly done in order for any of the team members involved to do efficiently the work to fix it. So this is more of a definition that hasn't been properly done by the producer than something that it's a fault of the tester. So all these mistakes can be prevented just by meeting two requirements. First of all, hiring a professional producer. I cannot stress enough the critical importance of a producer in a team. As I have told you before, the producer can be understood as the director of an orchestra, and even if it's possible that an orchestra can play without director, it's going to be extremely hard to do it. So by hiring a professional producer, someone who knows the responsibilities and the task of each of the members of the team and is respectful and a hardworking person, it's going to solve most of the issues that are going to appear during the development. And another requirement that is that all the team members must be respectful professionals who are aware of their responsibilities. In the next step of this lesson, we are going to go through all the steps to create a sprint and to work on that sprint. First of all, as an example, we are going to see the stages from the definition of a feature to the full implementation of it. Okay, the feature we want to implement is a tool panel system where we can select different tools the player can use. I am going to show you what I mean. We are going to implement an interface. In this part, I am taking as a reference a game I made, a personal project I made, and what we are going to do is just to implement this tool panel, and we are going to implement 3 of these items, okay? From the selection to the use of each one of these items. The 3 items are a rope that allows to jump one empty void, a cracker that allows to create some noise to distract the enemy, and a bomb that allows to kill and move blocks. So we would start in the pre-production stage, and what we have is that from the side of the client we can have a text description alongside some images as references and sketches about what is needed to implement. Then mostly the designer and the producer are going to participate in order to better define all these requirements. So here we have some documentation, some of the initial documentation of our initial project's concept, or some of the requirements agreed with a customer, okay, alongside some references of what needs to be done. All this work would go to the hands of the producer and the designer, who would start working, creating all the necessary documentation in order for the other team members to start estimating the tasks that need to be done. And oversimplify the example of our pre-production case, we can have just a text description of the requirements of our project, and in this text description the customer or the initial definition of the project, it's explained what it's supposed to do each one of the tools. Now the producer and the game designer are going to take this textual definition and are going to create all the necessary diagrams, sketches, screen flows, logic flows, in order for the other experts on the team to properly estimate the tasks that need to be done and how much time are going to take to do that tasks. The next stage is going to be the estimation stage. So once the pre-production is done, it's time to ask the experts about the estimations of how much work is going to take to complete these tasks. The experts will create a list of tasks with the estimations of how much work is going to take to do them. So the producer and the designer usually are the ones to create all the diagrams, all in a format, in a style that both the programmers and the artists are going to fully understand, and with that information they will be able to create the list of the tasks that need to be done in order to do all the requirements. So what we are going to do now is just a programming estimation, because the art estimation will be provided by the art expert. So here, the programmers use all the information provided in the pre-production stage in order to identify and estimate all the tasks and their cost to fully implement the features. The programmer will provide all the information to the producer and wait for the sprint planning meeting, where they will review the task and assign them. As an example, I have created this list of tasks I have been able to identify from the pre-production information. Okay, so I have created this list of tasks and I have properly estimated each one of them, how much cost it's going to approximately it's going to take me to complete each one of these tasks. Let's review them fast. For example, the implementation of the visual interface would take me one story point. Okay, and I have detected 3 subtasks related to only this visual implementation, these 3 tasks. Okay, other task, the implementation of the manager of the items, this related to the data management. I have there is the description of the task, and I have identified 4 subtasks. Okay, what else? I have also identified that it's necessary to create information streams to describe each one of the tools or items. So I also have detected 3 subtasks for this task. This task is pretty complex, so I have placed 8 story points in order to highlight that this task is complex and it's going to take time. And as a task related to this task, I have identified these 3 ones. Okay. And finally, I have identified another expensive task to do, that is the show of items. Okay, here it's the design that the designer has provided to us, and with this design we have identified several things. For example, in order to complete the task, we need to do these 3 subtasks. Okay, so with all this information, the producer can start assigning us the task, and he can work to properly estimate what can enter in this sprint, or if we need to leave something out of this sprint, or if we need to rethink some of these tasks to make it less expensive. So now the producer has all the information provided by the experts about the task that involve the full implementation of the features. He will analyze that information before the sprint planning meeting, and this is critical. The producer should respect the estimations provided by the experts. In the case that the producer doesn't like an estimation, he could ask the expert if it's possible a different approach. In the sprint planning meeting, the task will be discussed and assigned. So once the sprint planning meeting has been done, it's time to work. Okay, so once the tasks have been assigned, the sprint can start and all the people will work on their task in the order assigned. When there is progress done on some task, the employee should report the progress on the task ticket with the progress that has been done. The reported progress could be textual, it's describing the behavior implemented, images, screenshots showing what has been implemented, a video showing how it's behaving the feature implemented, or a binary build of the application in order for anyone to test it. This progress should be checked by the producer in order to verify that this is the expected behavior. Then, as soon as the producer detects that there is a deviation from the goal, the producer can contact the expert, the programmer, the artist, the designer, in order to fix this deviation and work towards the goal. During the sprint, there could be meetings in order for all the team members to be synchronized and don't deviate from the goal. Some of the meetings that can happen in this stage: the daily meeting, a short meeting, 5 to 10 minutes, to tell about the progress done yesterday and the progress that you are going to do today, and if you have any blocking issues that should be addressed as soon as possible. Another type of meetings, just custom meetings. While working on task, we could have several doubts that could require to meet with another team member in order to solve them. The request could be done to the producer and he will schedule the meeting for the people involved. It is critical that the producer works to minimize the amount of meetings. That is possible if the producer works hard in pre-production before assigning the task. It's necessary to stress out that during the development of the sprint, not all the communications are going to help in the work. There are some communications you should avoid. For example, the WhatsApp type of communications, a never-ending string of tiny messages where it's easy to lose track of what's going on, and they interrupt your normal workflow. Also, I don't think it's necessary to say that any inappropriate messages are forbidden. Recriminations, blaming, defensive attitudes to avoid the recognition of a mistake, disrespectful behaviors, or even insults. None of this helps and should be avoided. Just as an example of what I mean with bad communications and good communications, I have prepared this slide. In the left side of this slide, there is an example of awful communication. Short messages that don't provide enough information, that make the conversation to be long and confusing, and with some recriminations from one of the sides. This doesn't help in order to solve any issues that are going to appear during the normal development of software. In the right side, you would see exactly the same request, but properly done. The message is providing all the necessary information for the other part to recognize the problem, and the communication is respectful. Software development is a complex task, and game development is even more complex, because in game development multiple different areas need to work together synchronized in order to produce results. That's why during the development there could be conflicts, and that's why it's important to recognize and understand the responsibilities of the different members of the team and never step over the responsibilities of the others. The producer has the responsibility of the proper task definition and right assignation. The designer, responsible of the design. The programmer, responsible of the programming task. The artist, responsible of the art style. The tester, responsible of the test. Also, the producer should be a person capable of managing people with respect to deal with these conflicts. One thing that is critical for anyone who is involved in the development of a software project is that things are going to change during the development. As you do progress in the task, it's most probable that changes are required to be done. It's hardly impossible to define everything in pre-production, and this methodology understands that changes are a part of the process. When new changes appear after some progress in a task, the flow to manage this situation should work like this. First of all, the expert is doing some progress. He reports the progress, and it can be the producer or the designer or any person who needs to check on that progress that can detect that something needs to change. With this new change, then we would create a new task that the expert in charge will estimate, so it can be introduced in the planning. Concluding, there are way better experts in production than myself. In the field of production, what I have done related to production have been in my personal projects, and related to when I have worked as a freelance. Usually I have worked for someone else who has managed the production. This presentation has been based on my experiences where the production has been professional, they worked hard, and the responsibilities were perfectly clear. The advantages of a professional environment benefit the whole group and the productivity. At the end of the day, as a decent professional, you want to do a productive, useful work, meet the deadlines, and be respected. I have been happy the times that I have been in such professional environments.